Hey, it's time for another episode of #Event Icons, presented by Endless Events, the show where you get to ask the icons of the events industry anything. Just follow us on social media to ask questions. Our iconic guests will answer them live during the entire show. Before we get started, the more people we have watching, the better the conversation. So please help share #Event Icons on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Just tell your friends to watch live on any of our social media channels. Now, without any further delay, this is #Event Icons.
For those of you who are regular viewers, I know it's been a while. We're sorry about that. It's been a crazy time for everyone, and not just for us, for you guys. So we know, and thank you for being patient with us. And we're excited to bring this back. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce everyone to Tammy Dickerson. She has an incredible story of pivoting during one of the craziest times I think our industry has ever seen.
I think so.
Yeah. So I would love to just, hear your story about how you first got into events, and then we can just hear your story about now, because I'm sure things are a lot different than when you first joined.
I think so. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, good morning, everybody. It's so good to be back. It actually feels good to be back. And even though we're not back in terms of live events, I think just to be back at work, with the crazy systems that we work in, feels really good. So good morning. But I have actually been in event production for over 25 years. So I started at the age of 5. But I've been producing events for about 25 years. I started my career at the Coca-Cola Company, where I was actually a corporate event planner, planning events for them, doing everything from conferences and meetings and trade shows, product launches, internal meetings. And I also had the amazing opportunity of producing and working on the 1996 Super Bowl. I worked on the Olympics and some pretty big projects, and just really fell in love with what I was doing. But like most entrepreneurs, I was working crazy hours and traveling all over the place. And I said, I got that little bug, that little itch. And I decided that I wanted to start my own agency. And I started in my dining room 20 years ago. This year will be our 20th anniversary. So I started in my dining room, and basically I had an opportunity with former Vice President Al Gore to do an inner city economic summit that he was doing in Los Angeles. He was looking for a minority event planner, and a colleague referred me, and that was my very first client. And at that event, I got my second client, if you can believe me. Actually, one of the guests walked up to me and said, "This is a great event. Are you the event planner?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "I got a project in 6 weeks." And that's how it started. So it's been an amazing ride over the last 20 years. And after about a year and a half in my dining room, we moved out, and we've just been growing ever since.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That's such an incredible story. And yeah, just poking around on your website too, I just love that you guys really highlight too that you are female run, minority run. I just love that. I think it's amazing. It's so great to see that, especially just like, in today's world. I think it's awesome to see. And just like as a young emerging professional and a young woman, I think it's really awesome to see that too. And I love that. And that's like such an incredible story of how you got into events.
It's beautiful. We are really a family, and most of us have been working together for at least 15, 16 years.
Wow.
And it really just speaks to the power that women can work together. And not only women can work together, but my sister works with me as well. So my sister joined our agency about 8 years ago. So she and I work alongside as well. So it makes it even crazier, if you can believe that.
Yeah, I feel like that's even more controversial, family working together.
But she's my younger sister too. But it's been an amazing journey. I could not do it without the women that work on our team. We really are like family. We've had a lot of ups and downs, but we've really grown together as well. And they are the backbone of our agency, and they are what keep us running.
Wow, I love that. That's so exciting to hear. Yeah, and I also, when I was doing some research too, just so you guys have gone through a pretty big rehaul recently too of your brand. So if you want to talk a little bit too about how, the Baker Group kind of started and then emerged over to now TBG production or events. Is that right? Okay. Yes. Okay, great. Yeah, I'd love to hear about that transition.
About a year ago when we said, okay, we're going to be coming up against our 20th anniversary. What do we want to do? And everybody said, you're throwing a big party. This was pre-COVID, of course. You're throwing a big party. What are you doing to celebrate? And we really started thinking last year that what we wanted to do was really kind of a brand relaunch. We wanted to get a little facelift, if you will, and just look a little different as we were turning 20. So what we decided to do was really just kind of reinvest in the company and in the brand. So with that, we emerged that we are now transitioning from the Baker Group to TBG Events. And we are working on our new website, which is going to be launching next week. We have a whole new brand portfolio. Wow. So it's the same amazing company and team and professionalism that we had before. We're just looking a little different.
No, I love that. That's so exciting, especially, so many changes in 2020. This has probably been the craziest year, I think, of anyone's life.
God, yeah.
So probably good for some changes, some Phoenix rising from the ashes of quite literally all, as you're in LA, right? So all of California is a bit on fire right now. So I think some changes doing everyone good.
Yes, and it was perfect timing because actually we moved into new office space. We relaunched, or we were right about to relaunch our brand literally in March, 3 weeks before COVID hit. We moved to our new office space, and that was kind of the beginning of what we were going to do in terms of relaunching our brand. And who would have known 3 weeks later that we would be at the place that we are? So it was a tough time. We did have to, lay off a couple of associates, that work for us because we went from producing or had a calendar of over 12 events slated between March and April. And it went from 12 to 0 in less than, 30 days.
Wow. Yeah. No, we definitely felt that too. At Endless, we I think lost all of our clients in in-person events. Yeah. And that quick, first week of everything going, south. So it's definitely a stressful time. So I want to talk about that too. So let's talk about, pivoting the landscape of everything has suddenly having to go virtual. What was that like for you and your company, having to just learn this whole brand new set of skills that no one really we kind of talked about it a little bit. Everyone knew about virtual, maybe streaming, but nothing like what it's turned into now. So what was that like for you and your company?
It has been an unbelievable roller coaster, Sarah. I think that the first couple of weeks, like everybody in our industry, we were totally in shock. We were. And just really trying to figure out, what are we going to do? What's happening? Just personally and professionally, really. So I think that after we got past the shock, the first couple of weeks, we very quickly realized that we were going to have to do something different or we weren't going to survive.
Yeah.
So we did. We came together as a team pretty quickly and we started talking about who are the partners that we know that can still fight through this tough time. Who can we begin to collaborate with? What can we start to do in terms of research so we can make sure that we are one of the partners that are standing when all this is over? So we started reaching out to television producers. We started reaching out to some audio visual partners, some of which were already doing virtual events, but certainly not at the scale that we are at now. And we started learning everything we could about the marketplace and what was going to be coming, because we knew we would not be back in the live event space for a while. So we went through a huge kind of learning curve to figure out what are all these virtual events, how do you do it, what's the technology behind it. And that was really what helped us sustain our company and our brand. So over the last 2.5 months, we produced 5 virtual events.
Oh, wow.
5 virtual events. We're really excited about that. And we have another 3 or 4 slated for the end of the year.
Wow.
So, I would say just getting behind strategy and figuring out what we can do in terms of technology, big on collaboration and partners. That was
definitely
really for us, and finding new partners that helped us elevate our brand. And, we survived during the recession, so we knew what a hard kind of time it was and what we needed to do in terms of buckling down and managing costs and things like that.
Yeah, wow. I know it's crazy just to think that going from never doing a virtual event before to now doing 5. what,
Yeah.
what was that like trying to tell your customers and your clients, like, all right, we're going through a learning curve, but bear with us. We're the experts. We know what we're doing. What was that like? Was it hard to kind of gain that trust of like, you're scared, we're scared, but we're going to go through this together? What did that kind of look like?
That's exactly what we did. And I think
Yeah.
being open and honest with our clients, like many people out there in the event industry, one of the very first thing we did was just to check on our clients, just to see how they were doing personally and to make sure that they were okay personally. And that we knew from a business perspective, we would all survive and we would be okay. But just to check on them personally, let them know that we're here for them. We want to support. We know we got to change with events, but when we get to that time and space, we will make sure that we're here as your partner. So again, once that kind of passed, then we dived right in with some of our key partners that we knew already had events planning and saying, look, we're new, but we think we can help you figure out a way of doing this. We want that same level of trust that you gave us in producing a live event to let us show you how you can do it virtually. We started watching everything that was out there and how people were doing it. And we wanted to figure out, or we did figure out pretty quickly, that we didn't want to do just your simple Zoom call.
Yeah.
That was not the marketplace that we wanted to be in. We always wanted to bring and deliver an elevated experience for our guests. So that's what we work with our partners to do. And we remember our very first virtual event was a 2.5-hour fundraiser that we did. And after the fundraiser, we literally turned off our computers and we put on our shoes and we walked out the door. We're like, I kind of like virtual events now.
Yes. No, that's amazing. Yeah. And I think too, like, people are starting to realize like this isn't going away. I think a lot of people at the beginning were holding out hope, like, okay, I maybe have to learn this for a month or two, and then we can just go back to normal. And I think as this, progresses and keeps getting pushed back, this, the date when people can meet together in person again, I think people are starting to realize like, okay, this is going to be around for a lot longer than we originally had thought.
Yes.
So it's good to see that you guys at least enjoyed them and you're like, okay, this isn't so bad. So do you have any advice for planners out there that, might still be holding on hope or for in-person, or they're skeptical about virtual events? What do you kind of have to say as someone who's worked on the inside of these events?
I would absolutely agree with you, Sarah. I think this is going to be the place that we're going to be in for quite a while. And I think that even when we do transition back to live events, that virtual events will still have a place. They will absolutely still have a place in what we're doing in terms of event production. I think that we're going to slowly transition back into hybrid events. And then from hybrid events, then we will transition back into live events. So I strongly encourage all planners out there. I mean, you don't have to produce, a 3, 4, 5-day virtual conference, but you need to at least know and understand the technology. One of the pieces of advice is that make sure that you're working with technology partners that are also in this space and that can push you to the next level. There were some audiovisual partners that we work with live events that made a choice not to transition into virtual events. And it's going to be really interesting to see at the top of the year if those companies are still around. So I would say absolutely learn the technology, learn the platforms, and learn what you want to do differently as an agency. What do you want to bring to your clients that sets you apart from other people that are out there? Because if you don't do that, then you're not going to have the competitive edge that we all need. You're not going to be top of your industry. And your clients will wonder, wow, what happened? Why didn't they pivot? Why aren't they bringing these kind of options to us?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I love that some of the things you touched on. Definitely hybrid. I think that's where things are going. We keep emphasizing that too, that I mean, we've even seen some really beautiful stories about, people who can't necessarily like access in-person events either due to financial reasons or mobility reasons. And so virtual is actually kind of nice for them, and it kind of, allows for greater diversity in our attendees. People that weren't necessarily able to have a seat at the table now can.
Yes.
But then also, yeah, I think that says a lot about a company that can get down and dirty, pivot, figure out a way. I mean, there was definitely a period where there's a little bit of wallowing and sadness of just like, okay, this is terrible. Like my passion and what I love is essentially being ripped away from us. But yeah, I think it shows a lot of that grit and resiliency that those companies that do really care about, people and still meeting together have been able to pivot. So I love what you said about that. But one of the most important things I think you touched on was the technology portion. So I want to hear more about, what it was like. You kind of go from, using your normal in-person technology to now a whole new world of so many apps and platforms. I know like when we first were transitioning to everything, we were on so many demos trying to learn all these new things. So what was that experience like for you, and how did you not get overwhelmed by all of the choices out there?
It was like going back to school. It was like going back to college and having to, learn all this new technology. And like you said, do every demo that was out there to figure it out. So that was a little bit of a tough, period for us. And we basically, as a team, just kind of conquered and divided. We said we picked like the top 20 platforms that we all wanted to investigate. And we just split them up. And we just developed a long list of questions of everything that we wanted to learn about the platforms. We did, like you said, all the demos. We watched everything. We really worked with partners who were patient with us and who taught us the technology. But we also just raised our hand and said, look, we don't know anything about this. We know how to do a live event, but I don't know where to press the Zoom button, and I don't know how to record. And what do you mean by that bug? We were honest and we were open. And I think that people appreciated that. So as opposed to stepping into a space and saying, oh, I think I can do that, we were very transparent. So we were able to soak in a lot of the knowledge. And we made some mistakes along the way, and I think our first couple of shows, we figured out some ways of doing things differently. But that's what you have to do. You have to make mistakes. But if you don't jump out there and try, then you absolutely never know. And we knew that we were going to be one of those that tried it. Absolutely. So now we can walk away and say, not only did we try, but we did it, and we learned, and we still put our little twist on it to make it differently. And that's what we're known for. So that's one of the things that we wanted to do.
I love that. Yeah. And so you said one of the first ones that you did was a fundraiser. So I don't know if you're able to like speak a little bit more about like what that event looked like. You don't have to mention client names or anything like that, but what are some of the things you did to make it different or, still meet your client expectations during that event?
Yes, I'd love. So we basically this was an annual fundraiser that we had been doing for about 12 or 13 years. It was in celebration of Juneteenth. And
awesome.
it was a big reception that we always did for about 500 people. And a big part of the event, because it was a celebratory event, was all around food. People really came out. It was a great food and wine experience. So we were trying to figure out, okay, now how do we bring this element to a virtual event? It was all about entertainment and food. And we just worked with some strong partners and entertainment people to do the exact same thing. So we were able to do an amazing food delivery program. So we worked with a minority chef to help us develop a great menu and how we could pre-package this great food that our customers wanted. And we delivered food to over 300 people so they could still have the food experience while they had their virtual show.
Wow.
We had the same quality of entertainment. We flew a film crew to Northern California, and they actually shot some entertainment for us in the backyard of our celebrity entertainment, and they captured that for us. So we were able to still bring those live elements. And I think that was the first time that we said, you can do virtual different. You can do virtual different. So we got some really good feedback from that show. And from that, we got some new clients from it as well. So it was a wonderful experience.
Oh, that's amazing. And especially that type of event too. Like I think celebrating Juneteenth, especially this year more than any, I think the political environment that we're in, the social environment that we're in, even our chat today got political right off the bat. I think it's, foolish to think that we can hide from that. I think it really is hitting us in the face this year. There's so many different changes and things going on. And just, no matter what side of anything that you're on, whatever you believe in, I do think it's really important to notice the impact that events can have on, the type of discussions that we're trying to have and bringing people together to, talk about these big ideas and to change the world essentially is what, when events what it comes down to. When, at the end of the day, that's what events do. You come with one thing that you're thinking, and then you can leave with a completely different mindset. So I love that you especially focused on the emphasis of, even though you weren't able to meet in person, still having that event was, I'm sure, incredibly impactful, and, left the attendees just live like thinking in a completely different way than if it just didn't occur at all.
It did. It was really good, and we got some good feedback for it. And I absolutely agree with what you're saying, that, events, we always believe it's part of your communications platform for companies. Events should be used as a messaging tool, not just another chicken dinner to get people together. That's part of it. People enjoy it, they love it, and they miss it. But events should be a message for your company. They should still represent your brand, your missions, your goals. And that's what we do at TBG Events, is that we consult with our clients to figure out, how do you want to use the event as part of your platform? And that's really been helpful for us. So right on with Juneteenth, we were able to use that to celebrate what was happening in the country around civil unrest, but not only to celebrate, but to get people involved and to still have a voice. And that's
Absolutely
what events do for us.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with elevating those voices that have been kind of like shoved to the side. I think events are a great way to do that and to bring those voices up and help elevate that message. I think that's the most beautiful thing.
And you talked earlier about just expanding your audience. Typically with this event that we would have produced in Los Angeles, because of the venue that we were in, we always hovered around 500 people. At this event virtually, we had over 1,200 people attend.
Wow.
So that was another big learning for us and our clients, that you could take a local event that would have been right here in Los Angeles, and we now became a national event. So we were able to get brand exposure, our client, the cause. So that is the power of virtual events. So it's not a place I think that we want to live, but it is a place that we have to embrace and that we have to use right now where we are. And that's what we're learning, is that it really gives us the ability to expand what we never could have done before.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that you said that, because I think there's still skeptics out there. I think people are still like, oh, I don't want to be on my computer for an event. I want to be in person. And we understand that. We do too. I think everyone, it's no question that it's awesome to, be in person with people and give them a hug after not being able to see them for a year at that yearly event or that company meeting. But I think I like what you said of just like, we still can't ignore that this is a great viable way to bring people together. It's not the same. No one's saying that it's the same, but yeah, what do you say to those skeptics out there that are, really hesitant to sign up or to attend one of these events?
I said, one, you just have to try it. You really just have to jump out there and try it. Technology has come so far in the last 2 months. It's unbelievable. I mean, things that we can now do from, technology is really amazing. So you, one, have to try it. And two, life and the world is moving on. And, what are our options? In all honesty, we can either say we're not going to do it. We're not going to get the education programs. We're not going to still message and talk to each other, or we're going to jump out there and do it. We just produced a 3-day women's business conference earlier this week. And the client said the same thing, that our one option, Tammy, would be that we just pass on the event and we not do it. We wait until next year. But we said, no, let's take the power of what we can do with a virtual event and still impact our members, still connect with them, still provide them the information, the inspiration, the encouragement, and the knowledge that they still need through a virtual platform. And again, we would have had 200 or 300 attendees at this National Women's Business Conference, and we ended up having over 700.
Wow.
So you can impact people virtually. So to all of those skeptics, I say out there, I say, push through your hesitancy and give it a try and take on, what we can do with virtual events.
I love that. And especially with these big causes too, like, Juneteenth, or with, women in business, these big ideas and things don't take a break just because we can't meet in person right now. I mean, it's really tempting to just be like, oh, 2021, everything's going to be so great. But some of these things, don't take a break. They're more important now, more than ever. And I think it's really awesome that you are still exploring and so willing to, keep these messages and these ideas and these brands essentially alive, because that's what we're seeing a lot, is people being like, oh, we'll defer our event. But then, that really does in the long term kind of damage your your brand just because you are taking that, seat at the, right now you're taking a step back. So I love that you're like, no, we're gonna do it, whether you like it or not. We will power through. No, I love that. So things are still kind of tumultuous in the event space, in the world, in the country, and kind of still a tumultuous time. What do you think is next for your company, and what do you think is next in the world of events?
For our company, what we're focusing on is, we talked about, in the midst of celebrating our 20th anniversary, it was important for us and our clients to let them know that we're still here, that we're not going anywhere. That yes, this is a tough time. No one would have ever expected this, but we are a survivor. And that's what we do as a company, as a brand. We want to be here for another 20 years. So we want to make sure that our clients know that we're still here to support them when we come out. So that's another reason that we transitioned into virtual events, because we wanted to prove that as a small and minority agency, we can still survive, that given the opportunity, we can push through like any other major company and brand. And that has been important for us. We've rallied together as a team of women, and we've really done some amazing projects. So, to those naysayers that are out there, we say we are here, we're alive, and we're surviving. I think in terms of live events, people are very thirsty for them. We're thirsty for them. But in terms of where we are as a country, I think that we do just have to realize it's going to be at least another 6, to 12 months before we're back at that space, because we have to make sure that we're safe first. And everything that we do, we have to make sure that we're safe. We would much rather put live events off to make sure that we're safe. So to still follow the guidelines in terms of a lot of the micro events that are happening out there in small gatherings, even if you are doing those, just make sure that you're keeping people safe.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I think that's something too that we're trying to push, and we're coming out with guides and stuff to try to say, okay, if you are doing a hybrid event, here's how to keep your attendees safe. And also on the other hand is trying to make them feel comfortable, because I feel like there's also a lot of anxiety coming back to these events, as there's a group of people that's so excited to rush back and they want to go in person. I think there's another group of people that are going to feel that pressure to attend an in-person event, but maybe they don't feel 100% secure, or they're still worried about, bringing home the virus to their family or their loved ones, or they don't want to have that negative impact on people. So I think that's also something that is going to be really important to consider moving forward. What is your take on that?
And that's part of our role, as event consultants, that as you know, we are not event planners, we're event producers, we're event consultants. It's part of our role to make sure that we're educating our clients about everything that you just talked about. So not only learning about just technology, we are also learning about how can we implement all of these COVID testing, and how can we implement social distancing guidelines in the events that we produce. We're working with our venues and our partners right now to develop those kind of plans to prepare us when we do come back. Learning about how can we implement events differently, because I think it will certainly be a while before 500 or 1,000 people get together again. So what about those core groups of 100 or 200 or 300? To your point, how do we make them feel that coming to an event is safe, and that we've done our homework to make sure that they're prepared? So that's another part of the work that our firm is doing, just to make sure that our clients and guests, are safe.
Yeah, I love that. Education, I feel like, is really important. That's something that a lot of the different things I've been reading about, as a marketer, a lot of people that are saying, social media marketing and things like that during this time, a huge emphasis on education. A lot of things that you could say about, doing one thing or another can kind of trigger a group of people. But as long as you're just like educating, sticking by the facts, really showing people the pros and cons of every situation, I think that's the best way to go. So I love that you guys are emphasizing that.
Knowledge is power. We all
it
know,
is.
And it's our responsibility to make sure that we're still honing our craft. That if we're not out there really honing our craft, and if we're not out there really taking the classes and making sure that we are the best that we can be, then we are going to be left behind. So we have always, believed in knowledge. We've always believed in just learning. And it helps us improve. And that's how we're going to sustain over 20 years. And working with, young millennials and others that are coming into the business to help teach us. That's what's important to us.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yes, the next generation is going to be able to teach us so much. I'm
So
so
much.
excited to see what it looks like.
And they thrive on this technology. They do. They
Yeah.
jump right in and they help us learn about it and they tweak things and they help make us better. So it's been good.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that too, with like the future of everything, I know I asked like what you think, the next year or so is going to look like with events. And I think we're kind of seeing it too, in person is being pushed off more. But to even go further with that, what do you think the next decade of events is going to look like? What is your, dream in your future for, what events are going to look like in 2030?
I think in 2030, based on just kind of what I've read and what I've been hearing out there, is we will be some kind of hybrid, that it will always be hybrid, I think, because of the ability to take a live event, even if it's a live event for several thousand people, you can now expand it through the virtual experience and technology. So I think that we will always have that component of some hybrid event. I think that we will look differently. I think that we will have a lot more safety precautions in place in terms of how we're interacting with people, how we're serving food, how we're registering, how we're interacting on site. All of that will look very different. I like to say that for those of you who might remember the Jetsons, that are out there, I believe that that's how we're going to be in terms of events, that it's going to expand and they're going to be bigger and better than what they were before. But we're going to learn from it. We're going to learn from it. So it will look very different. I think that people who are waiting on things to go back to the way that they were are going to be waiting a very long time.
Exactly.
There is no back to the way that we were. It is all about the future. It is all about what's new. And that's what we have to be ready and prepared for.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think, people that are, just waiting around for things to go back to normal. I don't even know what normal is. And honestly, I don't even know if I want to go back to normal.
This is the new normal. People,
Yeah.
This is the new normal. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are, disregarding this year and saying like, oh, I'm over 2020 already. But I think there's so many important learnings that came from this year and so many, I feel like personally I've aged like 3 years within this year. I feel like, everyone has gone through so many insane things, but I think at the end of the day, we're going to look back and we're going to be better for it. So I think that's a really exciting thought because it can be really hard to get sucked in to the negative of, this year's been tough. At the end of the day, it's been really hard.
And if you can survive COVID, seriously, not only personally, but professionally, if your business can survive COVID, then you can survive anything.
Very true.
You were literally wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
So you can survive and figure out a way how to keep your team and your employees thriving, how to keep your brand still top of mind, how to make sure that your clients and your customers know that you can be a go-to agency. It's only going to expand what you're doing right now. So it's a way for small businesses to really show that we are fighters, and that we are really the heart of the country. A lot of the big brands, as you know, right now are suffering because of, overhead and other things. And small businesses are as well. So it's certainly not to say that you aren't. But I think that small businesses have the grit that you talked about. We have the determination, we have the power. And now we're saying we need that same opportunity that these big brands are.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think, so going back to what you touched on too, just if you can survive this, you can survive anything. I feel like even just going back to, the most recent tragedies that we've faced, I mean, even like 9/11 and the recession of 08, I feel like, brands were able to kind of bounce back from those things. But like you said, they, brands were absolutely decimated because of this. I think its long-term impact is really, it shows that those small businesses kind of are, taking over, which is really exciting. So to go back to, our whole topic of today and pivoting, and, I know you kind of touched upon rallying your team and getting everyone together, but when everything did take the turn, what did that day look like? Like, what did it look like in your office? How did you rally your troops together to say, okay, we could go in the corner and cry, or we could pick ourselves up and really turn everything around? What did that kind of look like?
You know what? We actually did go in the corner and cry. I think that you needed that emotional kind of release,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that we did take that as a team. I think that we wanted to make sure, because I mentioned earlier that we were a family. So we did. I think we wanted to take the time just to figure out, oh shit, what is going on? What happened? Yep. And, we just moved. And I think we needed to go in the corner and cry in order to get all the emotions out and make sure that our families were safe. And then after that period of time, then I really just made sure that I personally got on the phone with each one of our team members and said, look, I don't know exactly how we're going to do this, but we are going to figure it out. We are going to figure it out. Let's just be patient with each other. Let's give it some time to figure out, let things settle down, but we are going to figure it out. So I would say about 10 days after that is when we really came back together, and virtually, of course. And we said, okay, what's next? What's next? What do we start to do? And we started to implement plans and strategies. We started to brainstorm about what were the strengths of our company. What did we know that we could do? What did we not know? We started to list who were the partners that we thought we could start having conversations with. Who are those go-to people? Who are the events that we think could survive? How did we need to start talking to our partners in terms of venues, canceling events? Who did we need to start researching in terms of legal contracts, like everything around that space? But developing a strategic plan has always been important to us. So that is one of the first things that we started to do, is just dive into putting together our plan for each one of the events that we already had slated. And then just reaching out to our clients and having open and honest discussions about during this period of time, how we still want to be their partner, to trust on us. And I think the value of relationships with our clients was really important, because they didn't just see us as their event planner. They really saw us as their consultant. They saw us as their friend and as their colleague. And that is really what made the difference.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I think that's one of the best responses I think I've ever heard. I think from a business aspect, I think, the relationship, and honestly, what I just heard from all of that was relationships. I think at the end of the day, I mean, so many things are stripped away from us, but all we have at the end is each other. And I think you show that on a business perspective with, reaching back out to your clients and keeping those relationships strong. But also I really love that you focused on your team as well, because I think that was a big thing, was people feeling like, okay, well, we just lost all of our money, but I love that you called each one of your team members personally and was like, I don't want to lose you as well. And I think that is huge, because, there's even, been many emails right during all of this going down that, people just kind of jumped right into the business aspect of things and, communicated in the way that they normally do. But I think one of the most powerful things that happened was, those emails that I got where people were like, first of all, how are you doing? How is your family? Are you safe? Is everything okay? And I think just taking that extra step to, really show that you care about these people first, really sets the difference too between the companies that succeeded and the companies that failed. So I love that you took that perspective, above everything else.
Absolutely. And it's always been a part of our business philosophy. And it's been a part of what sustained us as a company as well, is that we add on that personal touch, is that, we do want to be a part of not only the organizations, but of the families. This people work with who they like, and who they know and who they trust and who they value has their best interest. And that has always been a part of the core of our company, is that we don't just want to produce a chicken dinner. We want to understand who are the clients that we work with, who are the people that we work with, and how we can form that team. And that has really sustained us. And it's been good. And now, 6 months into COVID, those same clients are now calling and saying, okay, Tammy, I think we now want to figure out what we can do. We want to come back to you. Help us understand what you've learned over the last 4 months. Help us figure out how we can do our events, because they trust us and that personal relationship is there. So relationships are everything.
Oh, wow. I think that's a beautiful thing to wrap up on. Just one last, question. If you were to give one tip to the event planners out there, what would you advise them to do in a time like this, where they're either thinking about pivoting or going through this transitional period? What's one thing that you would tell them?
I would absolutely tell everybody to make sure that you stay involved in the industry that we're in. that there's several trade associations out there and resources. So to stay involved, there's Meeting Planners International, MPI. I used to sit on the board of the Southern California chapter. Make sure you stay involved with your trade associations. BizBash, industry resources, your convention and tourism bureaus. There's great information that is out there. So don't, sit at home. Make sure that you're staying involved in what is happening in the industry. And as I talked about earlier, making sure that you are capturing all of that knowledge, that you're really honing in on your craft. One of the things that we also started doing was taking master classes. And I have been taking a master class every month since COVID.
Wow.
It's everything from how to inspire creativity to going back to just basic management classes, art classes, business classes. But I wanted to make sure that I could just take a step back and look at how we could use this time to develop ourselves. So stay involved. There's lots of good information and support that's out there. I highly encourage, all of the event planners and producers that are out there to have the belief in themselves that we're going to get through this, but we got to do it together as a family.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, after we end this broadcast, we'll probably have to stay on and just chat about master classes because that's definitely something I want to get into and I want to hear your favorites. Wow. But no, that's amazing. Well, Tammy, thank you so much for joining today. I think everyone got, a little bit of something from this. I think we touched on, absolutely. We touched on so many important topics. I think you really inspire hope in a lot of these smaller businesses that maybe are, facing some of the toughest times they've faced. But I think you and your company definitely show that it's possible and that, if you guys can rise from the ashes, so can these other companies as well. So again, I really appreciate your time. And for everyone watching, thank you so much for joining us. Definitely subscribe. We'll also throw all of Tammy's socials and all of her resources in our comments. So definitely go to www.eventicons.com to go see all of that. And we will see you guys next time on Event Icons. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of #Event Icons. To catch all of the bonus content, resources mentioned, and an invite to our Facebook and LinkedIn groups, head to www.event-icons.com. Also, let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Share your biggest takeaway, and just tag your social media posts with #Event Icons. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again soon, right here on #Event Icons.